In this presentation, I will address students failing to demonstrate how to create an effective resume. This is for 11th grade college and career readiness, but it can work for any class that will be teaching students about resumes. I have a couple of resources that will help with these difficulties. For resume writing, I have GCF Learn Free, Naviance, and WorkKeys. For GCF Learn Free, this is a tutorial, and it has a lot of topics that you could use. But for this purpose, I'm going to go to topics and then resume writing. Once that loads, you can see the different items underneath this, and they conveniently put a lot of the YouTube playlists together. But you would have the student click on the very first one if that's what you choose, and they would go through and read about this. Then they have the YouTube video embedded into this curriculum. And then it gives you good examples of what you should include on a resume. And then you would go through there and click continue once they were finished with that one. And of course, they give you a lot of different resources to help the student underneath that. And so they could go and learn more about resumes. Okay, so the next piece of information is the WorkKeys curriculum provided by ACT. And this has a lot of different things besides the business writing. But in here, the students would hopefully learn through the tutorials and the practice on how to effectively write a resume. So they've got lessons over here on the left, and they would click the link. But the first thing that they would do is they would assess where they are at right now in their learning. So they would take a placement quiz, and depending on where the placement quiz placed them, they may not start at level 1. They might start down here in level 3. But they would click on that link, and all of this learning part says, here's some stuff you need to read over and look through and look at the examples, and then rate your confidence as far as, do you know what it's talking about or not? And then after you get finished with that, then it would give you some practice to help reinforce what you learned over here. And depending on where you started would depend on what section you had to do here. So if you started on level 3, then after you did the learning for level 3, then you would scroll down here and level 3 stuff would be open. And you would click on that and you would go through the practice, the drills and the questions that it gives you, answering them. And then it'll tell you what your score was after you completed that practice. And then if you did well enough on it, you didn't need to go back and relearn something. Then you would go to the real quiz. And if your placement quiz, started you at a 3, then this level 3 quiz would be unlocked after you did the lessons and the practice. Of course, on the practice, you would have to pass each of the quizzes in the practice that were, you would have to pass the lesson practice 80% or better in order to move on to the quizzes. And as the teacher, you could reassign more attempts to give the student time to relearn or, to get help figure out what's going on, why they can't score 80 or better. Okay, my final piece to help students with resume writing is to use the Naviance career planning system. And after the student would log in, this is what their screen would look like. So they would go to the About Me section, and then they would click on Resume. And under this makes it pretty simple for them to add their different options. So they would go to Add over here, and then they would click on whatever it is that they wanted to put. So once they clicked on an item, then they would type their answer here. So then they would click Add on their item, and then they would go over here, and then they would continue working on this until they were finished with all of their items they wanted to put. Okay, and after they get all of their items that they want on their resume, then they would come over here to their save. They would save it, and then they would come over here to their saved resumes, and then they would click on Download to a doc. After they download to the doc, then they can use those formatting skills that they learned previously to make this resume better than what shows on their screen. If they are not creative enough to fix this, then they could apply a template here and just copy their words over to the template to make it look a little better. So the relative advantage for all three of these resources, GCF Learn Free, Naviance, and WorkKeys, is to help the student create an effective resume which will gain them an interview.